Friday the 13th is the most popular episode of the TV series. It's not even close. It is the most viewed video on MondoMedia's channel. Now, try to take a guess at why this episode is very popular. It stars Flippy. As everybody knows at this point, Flippy is the most popular character in the show, and that's just a fact. This is actually only Flippy's third appearance in the TV series, since he only appears once every so often. They make up for this by having the entire episode be Flippy-centric. Well, not literally all of it, but all the segments have Flippy in a major role. You can basically call this Flippy the movie. In fact, that's basically what it becomes for the last two segments, since they both follow the same storyline. Of course, the name of this episode is directly lifted from the 1980 horror slasher film. The first segment in this trilogy is Here Today, Gone Tomorrow. It actually stars Lumpy instead, which is nothing new. The episode starts with him and Cuddles playing a game of telephone. They use tin cans at first, but that doesn't work out, so they use coffee mugs. That doesn't work either. They finally settled on a barrel and a pepper grinder. Cuddles sneezes at the pepper grinder, which produces a loud sound through the barrel Lumpy is holding next to his ear. This causes Lumpy's eardrums to rupture, and he is given a hearing aid to compensate. For a while, it actually works. Lumpy sees the mole playing a trombone for money and decides to give him a coin. However, he drops it, and it rolls into the middle of the street. As Lumpy retrieves it, Russell comes in driving a seafood truck and hits a pothole, causing his truck to flip over, killing the mole and pinning down Russell as it sets on fire. Lumpy sees this and tries to call for help, forgetting that he's deaf. He then goes back home and doesn't hear all the alarms and noises that go off in his home, including the television he puts on. He tries to turn up the volume to the maximum, and when that doesn't work, he connects it to large speakers. We then cut to Flippy sleeping next door, where he has a dream of riding a unicorn. He is then chased by evil Flippy riding a helicopter and makes a run for it. He succeeds for a little while, only for him and the unicorn to be shredded by the helicopter. Flippy wakes up from this dream and walks up to Lumpy's trailer with an axe. He doesn't use it to bust down the door, he just rings the doorbell. Who knew evil Flippy had manners? He then throws rocks at Lumpy's trailer, and shock of all shocks, that doesn't work either. He throws a giant, sharp-edged log that's somehow connected to the sky. Whatever the case, Lumpy ducks that by sheer luck, and it swings back to hit Flippy. Lumpy then bakes a giant carrot cake and leaves his trailer on a bike with it. Flippy just says screw it and chases Lumpy with the helicopter he used in his dream. In fact, the chase directly reminds Flippy of that dream, and we see Flippy actually crying. I'll be for real, I actually felt bad for Flippy here. Regardless, he comes back to his senses and tries to stop the helicopter. It then crashes into Cuddles' house, where he is throwing himself a birthday party that the cake was for. Cuddles and Flippy were both relieved that nobody was initially harmed, only for the helicopter to move its tail blades at Cuddles and Flippy, slicing them to pieces. Lumpy then arrives and sees what had happened, so he uses a tin phone to call for help, and surprisingly it works. This episode was fun. As per usual, we have the iconic setup, the funny slapstick, the creative deaths, the comedic timing. All the ingredients for a good HTF episode is there. This is one of the funniest episodes in the whole show. However, I think this episode gets even better once Flippy enters the picture. As you all know, Flippy is usually a violent antagonist who almost always comes up on top. However, this episode subverts that by having Flippy be the wild coyote to Lumpy's road runner. This is a fresh take on Flippy episodes, and for that reason I consider this one of my favorites. It also continues the well-known rivalry between Flippy and Lumpy. This is actually only the second installment of this feud. Also, the scene where Flippy cries is one of the most well-known parts of this episode. And for good reason. It humanizes him and implies that there's more to Flippy than what meets the eye. It's generally implied Flippy has some standards, but this is probably the only instance where we see him showing outright remorse, or at least emotional vulnerability. I give this 5 tin cans. With the first segment out of the way, we now move on to Double Whammy. This has to be one of the most popular episodes by far. It's essentially the episode where Flippy receives the most character development, and it is arguably the episode that explores his PTSD the most. This episode begins at a carnival. Flippy is the carny for a test your strength game. The catch: the player was handy, and his prize is a foam hand. Anyway, after that, a plane appears to fly over Flippy's head, causing him to flip out. He somehow gets on the plane and kills the pilot, Disco Bear. He then Goomba stomps on Petunia and tears off the propeller of her plane. Flippy aboard yet another plane and uses the propeller to whack Giggle's eyeballs out their sockets. They get caught in the propeller, which tears out all her organs. Flippy hops off the plane, and we soon find out the planes were a part of a carnival ride. We then see Flippy with his therapist, Aka Lumpy. After figuring out what triggers Flippy's episodes, Lumpy advises him to meditate. This actually works for a bit, until he sees Mime breathing fire. Once he turns evil once more, Flippy then forces a whole bottle of alcohol down Mime's throat and shoots a flaming arrow at Mime's stomach, causing him to catch on fire from the inside and explode. Oh, he also got sniffles as well. Flippy's back at the therapist, who gives him a stress toy as an alternative solution. Flippy uses it while working as a carny for a water race game. Nutty arrives to play the game, and shock of all shock, this triggers Flippy's PTSD. Flippy squeezes his stress toy to calm himself down, but he squeezes it too hard, causing it to pop. Evil Flippy has now fully taken over and rams Nutty's head through the carnival stand, where Flippy sprays water into his mouth until his head explodes. In his third session with Flippy, Lumpy uses his final trick up his sleeve, where he hypnotizes Flippy. This causes Flippy to fall asleep. In his dream, Flippy walks down a path that is basically just HDF in a nutshell. He then joins a group of penguins for a tea party. Flippy wakes up and sees Lumpy acting like a chicken. Flippy goes home and gives himself much-needed sleep. He continues his dream, where he has tea and cookies with the penguin, only for one of them to be stabbed in the back by evil Flippy. Flippy wakes up from the nightmare, washes his face, and takes his meds. He then looks behind and sees that his evil self has suddenly become a separate being. Evil Flippy attacks good Flippy, and the episode ends. To be continued. As for a review of this segment, I also love it. As a whole, it is a good demonstration on why Flippy is such a good character. When he's evil, he provides some of the show's most creative, comical, frightening, and engaging moments, and makes a cinematic spectacle in most scenes he's in. But there's also the added context of him being a sufferer of an illness that makes him act the way he does, creating a layer of sympathy to his character. I give it 5 teddy bears. Now we have our final segment, Autopsy Turvy. This episode follows Toothy and Cuddles playing dress up with Chrome Marmot. But actually no, it's a fake out. It's a follow-up to the previous segment. For most of the episode, it's a climatic brawl against both sides of Flippy. I gotta say, the whole fight scene is just really epic. I love how they use staplers as a substitute for firearms. Flippy eventually incapacitates evil Flippy, and it seems that he had won, only for him to be crushed by a piano. Yeah, a piano. Either Flippy's built different, or this show doesn't care about the consistency of what these guys can endure. Probably both. Flippy wakes up to find himself handcuffed to an upright mattress with a hanging light overhead. Evil Flippy then attaches a car battery to the mattress springs via a set of jumper cables, electrocuting good Flippy. However, Flippy manages to escape while the lights flicker and fights evil Flippy some more. only to be subdued by him. At that moment, it's there where we realize evil Flippy has actually never been there. This whole time, Flippy was having an imaginary brawl with himself. Despite this revelation, both sides of Flippy continue to fight, and this culminates in them each releasing an army of their clones. Yeah, this episode is a trip. The clones fight, and we get possibly one of the bloodiest scenes in all of HTF. Flippy survives the ordeal, and shockingly, his PTSD has been cured. Too bad, he gets run over by a truck afterward, and the episode ends. Autopsy Turvy was also a fun episode. Again, the brawl between both sides of Flippy was really epic. The twist at the beginning was good. As per usual, the comedy lands each time. I think the scene with Lifty and Shifty was definitely a highlight. And again, I love the stapler scene. The scene at the garage was unhinged. I give this episode 5 evil Flippies. So that was Friday the 13th. A rather fitting way to end the TV series. Each segment of Friday the 13th was a hit. Here Today, Gone Tomorrow was just funny. Double Whammy was probably Flippy at his best. And Autopsy Turvy was just one big epic fight scene with the show's signature comedy sprinkled throughout. Also, I love how Flippy is portrayed in these episodes. We get a better look into his psyche, whereas previous episodes didn't really explore that aspect of Flippy's character. Furthermore, I love how evil Flippy is portrayed in Friday the 13th. He shows more moments of weakness, and he shows a wider array of emotions outside of being angry and vicious. Here Today, Gone Tomorrow is my favorite depiction of evil Flippy. He's just the Wile E. Coyote to Lumpy's Roadrunner, and I'm all for it. Plus, that scene where Flippy cries was very impactful. I give Friday the 13th 5 Flippies. It's funny how, for an episodic show like this, the TV series of HDF has one of the most climatic endings. It really isn't a wonder that this is the most viewed video on Mondo's channel.